Ladies, okay, welcome everybody. We're continuing chapter 13, and I want to start off with a little story. So I don't know if you know, in the olden days when there was a Beit HaMikdash, there was a temple. Every year on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, there's the high priest, only one of him, like there's one high priest. He would go every year in the Beit HaMikdash on Yom Kippur, and if the Jews were not behaving and weren't meriting good stuff, the high priest would go in the Kodesh, he would go in the temple, in the Holy of Holies, in the holiest room. He wouldn't come out. He would die in there. And hello, welcome. Year after year, there were many years that every year they had to get a new Kohen Gadol because the Kohen Gadol would die. So as we're approaching Hanukkah, there's a story of Matityahu and Yehudit. Their father gave up his life, and he made Matityahu and Yehudit, they made the miracle of Hanukkah happen. And their father was a Kohen Gadol for over 80 years, which means that for 80 years he would go on Yom Kippur in the Kodesh Kodashim, and he would come out, which means the people were behaving in those days. Okay, and you have to understand that most times the Kohen Gadol would not come out, like he would die on Yom Kippur in the Kodesh Kodashim.
They had to tie him.
Yeah, to be ready to take, because they couldn't go in to get them out. So they tied him. They tied with strings, so they would be able to take him out without going in. So this Kohen Gadol, do you think? Also he married. Okay, he was such a Kohen Gadol, such a high priest, that everybody merited that he would come out every year. For 80 years, he was the Kohen Gadol of the Jewish people in those days. And when he was in the Kodesh Kodashim, when he was in the Holy of Holies, he would even hear the voice of Hashem in there. Like, he was really, really holy. So my question is, do you think we're talking here about a tzaddik?
Yeah, I know the story different, but that's
What's different? He's not a Kohen Gadol?
it's not what the people did, it's what the Kohen Gadol was.
Okay, we're saying both. Okay, Chaya is adding here. Chaya's in real life today, not on Zoom. So she's adding here that it's actually depending on the behavior of the Kohen Gadol, not on the behavior of the people. So it could be that it's a combination of both. Could be you're right. Could be whatever. Because I thought that it was always
the Kohen Gadol could buy his position at the time. So not
with money or with his behavior.
Yes. Was money, was
really? Okay. Anyways, we're talking about a very special Kohen Gadol. So do you think we're talking that he was a tzaddik? Most of you said yes. Okay, so it definitely sounds like the highest form of a tzaddik.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay.
He could be, but he couldn't be. He couldn't be a tzaddik because a tzaddik couldn't pray for the people. He wouldn't be able to identify wrong things about others because he's.
Okay, so listen, it sounds like we're talking about amazing tzaddik that has no yetzer hara, and he's very holy, very with Hashem. Now, the Gemara, the Talmud tells us that this man that we're talking about, we say it every Chanukah in the prayer of Vala Nisim. We're talking about Matityahu ben Yochanan HaKohen Gadol, like we're saying that the miracle of Chanukah happened because of we say Bimei Matityahu ben Yochanan HaKohen Gadol, like we're talking about this amazing Kohen Gadol for 80 years. What does the Talmud tell us about him? That at some point in his life, suddenly, he turned around. He failed, and he became a Tzeduki. He became a Sadducean, I think you call it in English. Tzeduki.
Oh.
How do you say Tzeduki in English? Sadducean. Something like that. Anyway, he turned around and he became a rebel. Like, he opened his own branch of Judaism that doesn't follow exactly the Torah, a certain new type. And anyway, so how do you think such a thing can happen? If he's such a tzaddik, such a Kohen Gadol, so loyal to Hashem, so holy, so everything, how can such a thing happen that things can turn around all of a sudden? So, and what is it teaching us?
The Yetzer Hara took over.
What?
The Yetzer
Hara was still inside of him. Yeah. And the Yetzer Hara took over. Yeah, you realize that.
As I said,
he must have had the Yetzer Hara all along and overcame it. So he was like the highest form of a Beinani, but he wasn't a tzaddik. He was the highest form of a Beinani. He still had an existing Yetzer Hara that was absolutely quiet and sleeping, but sometimes Yetzer Hara can wake up. So that's exactly what happened. So from here we learn a very, very important, and that's what we're going to talk about today, a very important teaching from the sages. Don't believe in yourself until the day that you die. Okay? Don't believe in yourself. Don't think that you're a tzaddik or that you're never going to do, like, this is never going to happen to me. This is never going to, like, me? No. No. Until the day you die, anything can happen to you, and you need to be on guard. You need to know that you have a Yetzer Hara and something can happen to you. So today we're going to try to understand why we can't say, this is for sure never going to happen to me, why we can't say such a thing. And we're going to understand, we're going to ask a question and answer it. Are all rabbis a tzaddik? Like all the rabbis and all the special people that we have around us, like all the people that we call tzaddikim and special, teachers and everything, are they really a tzaddik? And we're going to realize that almost everybody is human, and we have a Yetzer Hara. Everybody has one from a very young age, and it's there. So we're going to start off. Well, our class is going to have 3 parts. Again, 3 parts of the Tanya. The first part is going to talk about the Rav. Any rabbi actually is being a Beinani. Okay, and we're going to see that could any rabbi be a tzaddik, like are the rabbis tzaddikim or beinanim? And then we're going to see what happens to the Yetzer Hara. In any type of person, the Yetzer Hara can have moments that he's completely asleep, like Badait Kohen Gadol. By Yochanan Kohen Gadol, he was completely asleep, and sometimes this Yetzer Hara is going to wake up. So how do we do that? The Yetzer Hara falls asleep. What do we do for it to wake up? Like how do we cause it? This Yetzer Hara to fall asleep and wake up? Yeah.
I think the Yetzer Hara are never sleeping. It just depends how the person's strong enough.
Exactly.
Like
no, but when you're praying, for example, we already spoke about it. When you're praying, even a Beinani, when he's praying and he's completely in love with Hashem in such a high place, in that moment, the Yetzer Hara is sleeping. We already learned that, right?
Yeah,
anyone remember from the previous classes?
But
Yeah.
I believe that anybody in a higher position, Kohen Gadol or anyone, cannot be a tzaddik. Because if he's the complete tzaddik, then he cannot identify with other people.
Okay, so we'll talk about those people. This is the class today. We're going to find people that are from another level, and we're going to have really cool stories about people that are from another level. Like, how can you tell if it's a tzaddik or if it's a Beinani of a very high level? Like that has a Yetzer Hara, but you can't tell. But we still have to remember that if you're not a tzaddik, if it's not proven that you're a tzaddik, that you don't have a Yetzer Hara, then there is a Yetzer Hara, and you have to be very, very aware, very on guard.
The only one we know is
The Rebbe, it's a good question. To be honest, at this point, after this, maybe at the end of the class, we'll try and guess. But I would say that he's a tzaddik. But you never know that it could be that he's on the high, because the Alter Rebbe, okay, we're running through the class, but the Alter Rebbe said about himself that he's a Beinani.
Okay.
No, I think
The Baal Tanya said that he's a Beinani. So I don't want to, I can't be the one saying that the Rebbe is for sure a tzaddik,
Yeah, okay.
or if the Rebbe is the highest level of a Beinani. The Alter Rebbe, somebody, like he said, I'm a Beinani, and people said, how can you be a Beinani? Look at you. He's like, there's 500 levels within Beinani, and how much the Yetzer Hara is asleep, how much Yetzer Hara is awake. So you can be on the highest level of a Beinani. The only difference between Beinani and a tzaddik is that the tzaddik has literally no Yetzer Hara. It's gone. You don't even have to be aware. Like, you don't have to be alert. You don't have to be on guard. You don't have to be careful. Otherwise, everybody needs to live very careful. That's the lesson. Okay, so we're going to talk about tzaddikim, the fact that the Yetzer Hara wakes up and falls asleep, and we're going to talk about this Rabbah, which we mentioned, I believe, in the first chapter, a man, Rabbah, that never stopped learning. You remember about him? He never stopped learning, and there was like a split second that the angel of death wasn't able to kill him, and there was a split second that he stopped, and then and also up there in Shamayim, they were looking for him. Anyway, so and then they managed to kill him. The angel of death managed to kill him in the end. But this Rabbah called himself a Beinani. He was the biggest tzaddik in his generation. So how people said, if you're a Beinani, we're like, what? So how come Rabbah calls himself a Beinani? And the Alter Rebbe mentions him in today's part of the Tanya that we're going to learn. So let's go right into it. So I'm going to show you the very important, I'm going to just go to the beginning of today's Tanya, because it's very, very powerful. Here it is. This is how he describes, what is this thing? This is how the Bala Tanya describes the Beinani, okay? Or whatever, this person. Look at the first sentence on top. Even if one's entire aspiration is in God's Torah, which he studies day and night for its own sake. Like, it means that he's studying Torah non-stop for Hashem's sake, like not for himself, because of Hashem. Do you think such a human being is possible? Do you think such a thing is possible, that somebody can be learning Torah day and night and only for the sake of Hashem? Mm-hmm. He's saying even such a person, okay? So we're talking about a person who's not just studying Torah, but he loves the Torah and he's busy with it day and night, non-stop, everything only for Hashem, not for himself, not for his interest, not for his honor, nothing. So can you think of such a person? Can you imagine, try and picture such a person, okay? Put in your head like a rabbi with this beard. No, actually, you should tell me. What do you think such a person looks like? What do you think he does the whole day? What do you think he looks like? What do you think what his actions are like?
He doesn't eat 2 times.
He doesn't eat.
What's the name of this rabbi who was writing Kabbalah, Zohar?
Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai?
Yeah, because he was like
day and night learning. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is a good example.
And eating like on their
eating just whatever Hashem gave him, the carob tree and the water. Rabbi Akiva. Listen, these are all rabbis. So you're picturing one of those holy rabbis, and for sure he looks very holy. Okay, it's like definitely the rabbi that's like in a cave, not like definitely like not eating like us and not like.
And he saw people walking and the person died.
Right. He couldn't stand it. Was learning Torah. Right, he was on a very high level. It's true. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is a very good example.
I remember stories of the Rebbe while he was taking his jacket off. He had an open book in front of him.
He didn't stop for a second.
Yeah, he didn't stop.
So it sounds like such a person, like the first sentence of the Tanya of today. It sounds like he's describing a person that's above everything. Okay. We can say that it's a tzaddik, very, very holy, completely holy. And this person probably has no negative impulses, no animalistic soul, no animalistic pose. He's not enjoying all the enjoyments of the world. For sure, he's not interested in them. Like he's completely above all of it. And that's how we look at him. And also, he probably perceives himself that way as well. Like he probably sees himself as like, nothing is interesting in this world and it's all good. Now, the Alter Rebbe is telling us something new today. He's going to throw like a big bomb, and he's going to say that even such a person that we just described, that's learning Torah all day and night and barely eats, and and only for God's sake, is not necessarily a tzaddik. Is not necessarily somebody without a yetzer hara. He may look like this tzaddik. He may behave 1,000% like a tzaddik, but he might not be a tzaddik. That's what we're learning today. Like even like the highest level, he might not be a tzaddik. We don't know. Okay, so when we say rabbi or when we say Rabbi Akiva, whatever, I don't want to say names because I can't judge whether they were a tzaddik or not. The Rebbe, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, all these special people. I don't want to be judging who they were, but he's saying like a person based on who he's describing, like without a name. He's saying somebody that's learning Torah day and night for God's sake, like for just out of love for Hashem. This amazing rabbi is not necessarily a tzaddik. That's what he's telling us. Someone who learns Torah all day and is surrounded only by holy things his whole life. It doesn't mean that the yetzer hara is gone. Not necessarily. It doesn't mean the yetzer hara doesn't exist somewhere. He can be there. So it could be that the yetzer hara disappeared, but it could be the yetzer hara is still there, and we have no proof. Like we have no way to know whether the yetzer hara is there or not. Okay, because even the person himself might not know. because he's constantly busy with Torah, he's constantly busy with holy things, so he's not letting the Yetzer Hara wake up. It could be he has a Yetzer Hara, but how do you know he has a Yetzer Hara? We have no way to know. He's not letting the Yetzer Hara talk.
No,
He's
but they
behaving
don't
in
know
such
how
a way.
to judge, because let's say in the Torah, they said only about Noach, ish tzaddik tamim haya b'dorotav. The Torah is saying he was tzaddik. I
In
don't
his
know
generation.
what the Torah required. And we know Yosef was a tzaddik, but I don't know how.
Right.
they-
Listen, what we know is in the entire world, from Adam Arishon till today, there were only 36 tzaddikim.
Yeah, we know that.
That's what we know. So I don't know if you're gonna put all the people we just mentioned. Well, I think we're already like we're gonna
No,
get very
but
fast to
in
36.
Any generation of 36.
No.
No? I thought they are the.
No.
pillars of The world, how the world will collapse.
No. It was all the world together. From what I remember, it was everything together. So-
No, it's not. The world is big.
Okay, so if you're gonna ask now, this person is completely holy. He's so holy. How can he have a Yetzer Hara? Like how he sounds so holy. How do you think he might have a Yetzer Hara? So there's a possibility. There's a Yetzer Hara. There's two possibilities why there might be a Yetzer Hara and he doesn't feel it. So number one, it could be that he's not attracted to anything bad. He grew up
Right.
in a spiritual environment. He was never attracted, never exposed to the pleasures of the world. He doesn't even know they exist. He doesn't know that there's special food and special traveling. He doesn't know anything. Okay. And he's a whole day in his Beit Midrash, in his synagogue, learning Torah. That's all he knows. And he's very happy in his Beit Midrash. Such a person that his whole life is there, he doesn't know anything else. He might not even be aware that he has a Yetzer Hara, but there's a Yetzer Hara there, but he's not letting it express itself. But if this person, you take this person out of the Beit Midrash, out of his Torah, and you expose him to the world's pleasure, suddenly the Yetzer Hara might wake up, right? And all of a sudden the Yetzer Hara can be very loud and okay.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the Yetzer Hara is totally asleep only because he's learning all day. So in a way, this can happen to anyone that grew up in a religious environment, religious family, in a religious neighborhood, in Bnei Brak, in Sha'arim, or whatever, Crown Heights, like you grew up in a whole religious environment, and you don't know about all the temptations of the world. You don't know anything. And you can think, I'm immune to it. This thing will never be interesting to me. Like you can grow up in Mea Shearim and say, Netflix will never be interesting to me. But no, that's not true. It's a very cute example is bacteria and sicknesses. The fact that the person is not sick with a specific bacteria, like what I say with the COVID, okay, it doesn't mean that he's immune to COVID. If he's sick now with, if you don't have this bacteria in your body now, you're not sick with it. It doesn't mean that you're immune to it. It just means that right now you don't have it. But does it say that if you're exposed to this bacteria, you're not gonna get sick? We don't know. Until you're exposed to that bacteria, we have no guarantee that you're immune to this bacteria, right? And well, we don't know if he's going to be exposed, how the body will react until he's actually exposed to this bacteria. So, in other words, in simple words, there's no one has an insurance certificate that he's immune. Okay, it for sure can be that in different circumstances, a person suddenly things will pop up. If he's going to be exposed to different stuff in the world, suddenly the Yetzer Hara can wake up and he can feel a strong pull, a strong impulse to something negative. It's possible. But that's why this person is very, very careful and has to be very, very careful all the time. We have to guard ourselves to make sure to not fall and not be exposed to all these temptations to not fall. That's the person that wants to stay a whole day with his Torah, stay at Tzaddik. There was a big Talmid Chacham. It was a big Talmid Chacham that was like on a very high level. And he was able to understand everything very well in the Torah. He knew tons of Torah. He was studying lots and lots of Torah. He was like unbelievably smart. And he was studying day and night. And he was somebody that the Alter Rebbe could describe, that it's somebody that his whole inspiration is to study Torah day and night for Hashem's sake. And that's this type of man that we're talking about here. And he was learning and learning. He lived in the times of the Alter Rebbe, of the Baal Tanya, and he wasn't a Chassid, but then slowly he started learning Chassidut. and he met the Alter Rebbe for the first time, and he asked the Alter Rebbe, "What am I missing?" He meant to say, like, I'm not missing anything. I'm perfect. I'm learning Torah all day. Like, I'm not missing anything. I'm perfect. And the Alter Rebbe told him, "You're not missing anything. You're a God-fearing Jew. You're a big learner. You just need to remove the chametz, the ego inside of you.
Humble.
You have to become humble and bring some matzah inside of you, which is bitul, which is self-nullification." So this person definitely had this yetzer hara that brought out his ego. Like, he's like, I'm perfect. I know everything. I can learn everything, etc. Okay, I think I'm gonna read this. I don't know where I am. Okay, there's a Hayom Yom. Hayom Yom, again, I mentioned it to you last week. It's a compilation for all the days of the year from the Rebbe with different anecdotes and teachings. So it says that there was a brilliant give me a second. Sorry, this story that I just told you, now I want to show it to you. Sorry. This same story that I just told you is a Hayom Yom. Give me a second, I'll show it to you. Hayom Yom, 27 Tammuz. The Rebbe brings this story. And I'm just going to share my screen. Whoops, where is it? Yeah. Why can't you use Google? It's a good tool. Yeah, a brilliant and renowned scholar, especially gifted in remarkably profound studies, came to Liozna and threw himself in the studies of Chassidut. And whatever, he was amazing. And then he goes into Yechidut with the Alter Rebbe and he asks, "What am I lacking? What am I missing?" And the Rebbe told him, "You're lacking nothing. You're a God-fearing and a scholar. You do need, however, to rid yourself of the chametz, which is awareness of self and arrogance, and to bring in matzah, which is bitul, renunciation of self." And then he continues, the Rebbe continues, "An implement, such a roasting speed, may have been used with yeshut, like awareness of self. The person imagines himself to be light. Such pride repels the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, for he and Hashem cannot dwell together. That implement and vessel person needs purging through such intense white heat that the spark of the Birurim purification fly out and absorbed in the true light." Anyway, so the story I told you, what I wanted to say is that it's a Hayom Yom that the Rebbe brings to teach us that sometimes you can think that you're so great, but you need to remember that there's a Hashem here and put him first. We're talking here about the amazing tzaddik. Okay, like the people that think that they're tzaddik.
It seems like everything has to be balanced. Like everything that we talk about is not too haughty, not too imperfect, not too, like everything has to be in balance.
I don't know what balance you're talking about, because in a way it sounds, I mean, to me, I don't look at it as balance. I look at it as very extreme. Like you have to do everything right. According to Hashem and it all has to be godly soul. All about Hashem, all about the Torah. Is that a balance? I don't know. I see it as being a one side. Like we need to I don't know if we have to look to balance between what. I don't know. I'm not understanding which balance
like,
you're talking about.
If he's thinking too haughty of himself, so he
Okay.
had to balance it out and
Yeah.
think a little bit less, like that he's not.
He had to get rid.
Yeah.
He had one problem, and he had to get rid of that problem. Yeah. But balance, I don't know. It bothers me, the idea of balance, because over here it's like saying
Not at all.
the idea is that it's not a balance.
Yeah,
The idea is that you have to do only what the godly soul says. Okay.
But tzaddik is
Anyway,
not
let's
aware
open
of
it, Tanya.
the perfection.
That's
Yeah, he's not aware of himself. He's only aware of doing what Hashem wants. Exactly. This guy was clearly not a tzaddik. He clearly was missing something.
Yeah,
It's
he
the
was
idea to tell you that
smart.
as much as you're learning a whole day, and as much as you think you're doing only what Hashem wants, we still have a yetzer hara, and he comes in his very tricky ways. Okay, so we're going to open up the Tanya and see what the Alter Rebbe tells us, that even if somebody is completely dwelling in Torah and only doing what Hashem wants and only for Hashem's sake, it's still not a proof. It's not a proof at all. He's going to say, not even a proof or an assumption that the yetzer hara disappeared. And it can be that the yetzer hara in a different circumstance is going to come with its full intensity. and it's gonna and we have to be very careful because because we're talking about a Beinoni, the Yetzer Hara is not going to express itself in the garments, in the thought, speech, and action, but we have to be very, very careful of the drives that it brings to the person. So let's see let's look at it in the text. Okay. So even if one's entire aspiration is in God's Torah, which he studies day and night for Hashem's sake, this is still no proof whatsoever. Okay, this is not a proof whatsoever that the evil has been dislodged from its place, that the evil is gone. Perhaps, rather, the essence and substance of the evil are in their full strength and might in its abode of the left part of the heart, except that its garment, namely the thought, speech, and action of the animal soul, are not invested in the brain, mouth, and hands and other parts of the body to think and to do that which is forbidden, because Hashem has granted the mind supremacy and dominion over the heart. Therefore, the divine soul in the mind rules over the small city, all the parts of the body, making them, the body's organs, serve as garment and vehicle. Through which its three garments, namely the thought, speech, and action of the Torah's 613 commandments, are expressed. This person on the outside, he's expressing himself completely according to Torah. However, in its essence and substance, the divine soul has no preponderance over the essence and substance of the animal soul in the case of a Beinoni. Okay, we're going to stop here. So you see, we're basically saying be very careful. Even somebody that behaves on the outside 100%, you have no proof that the Yetzer Hara is gone. Okay, so we mentioned that there's we mentioned the first possibility, that it's possible that he's just not attracted to the bad because he's not exposed to the temptations, right? Now it's possible that one day, if he's exposed to them, the Yetzer Hara is going to wake up and he's going to make him want to sin. Okay, but there's another possibility, that he is exposed to all the desires of the world, but he still feels disgusted by them, and he doesn't talk to him. So it's a person that's like, he's learning Torah, but he's exposed also to all the temptations of the world, and those things are not, he's not interested. He's disgusted by them. This feeling can happen to someone, for example, that is choser b'tshuva, that's becoming closer to Hashem, and he realizes that the Torah is the truth. Torah is everything. And in that period of time, while he's like so excited that he found the truth, okay, there's lights, like the Torah is like full of flashing lights. It's so clear. And the pleasures of the world are disgusting to him, because right now he's in such an elevation period of his life that he found the truth, and he's like, that's not according to the Torah. That's not interesting to me. I'm only interested in doing all the mitzvot. I'm choser b'tshuva. He's all excited. So, and a similar situation can be with someone who has, even if he's not choser b'tshuva, but he has a moment of spiritual elevation. He's in the middle of a very emotional prayer. You can be praying at the kotel, you can be praying at the ohel, okay, or you can be after an amazing farbrengen where you like got all inspired, or you can have a very good song. It can be Yom Kippur in the synagogue, and you get all emotional and all on a spiritual elevation. Okay, those moments, you can come to a place where all the temptations to sin are asleep right now. The Yetzer Hara can be falling asleep. If you're like on such a high, your Yetzer Hara, for those moments or for those few days or few weeks, Yetzer Hara can be falling asleep, and you're pushing him away, and you're even going to be like, how can you even, like, you're going to right away recognize the voice of the Yetzer Hara, and you're like, what are you talking about? This is not interesting to me, right? So it seems that when a person knows the pleasures of the world and he still is disgusted by them, you can think that this person is immune to his Yetzer Hara. You know that that's not the case. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe tells us that there's no proof that the Yetzer Hara ever disappeared. Okay, it's possible that the Yetzer Hara is sleeping. He's asleep in those moments. So in those moments, the good is revealed, the good is flooding the person, he's all inspired, okay, he feels love for Hashem, as it says in the Shema, b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol modecha, like with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, like your entire you is like in love with Hashem. You can be in such moments when you're praying or whatever, in all the moments that we mentioned, and in those moments you're disgusted by all the pleasures of the world. You're disgusted by whatever the Yetzer Hara has to offer you. But it looks like, so in those cases, in those moments, it looks like the good manages to push away the dark, the bad completely. But as soon as this same person goes back to normal life, somehow he's like, he came back from his elevation moment, he's back to earth. He realizes that it was just the good that rolled over the bad for those moments, but he's going to realize that the bad is not gone. It's right there. And as soon as the bad wakes up, like it can be very active and it can push us to do bad things. So because we know that this is what happens, we need to be very aware that the Yetzer Hara can be asleep, he can wake up. So we cannot fool ourselves and think that we have no Yetzer Hara. Okay, we have to be very, very careful with that. Even if sometimes some temptations don't talk to us, I'm like, right now I'm so not interested in this type, like, let's say certain types of temptations, certain types of sins, you're disgusted by them. Let's say pork. Right now, we're all disgusted by pork, but it doesn't mean that one day we might not smell it and taste it or whatever, have a feeling that we want to have it more than we have it today. There's no guarantee, basically. There's no guarantee that Yetzer Hara is not going to wake up. You can't say, I'll never be interested in pork. You have to be aware that Yetzer Hara might one day manage to convince you and to fool you and to get there. Like the Yetzer Hara is constantly working. I gave you a very extreme example. Imagine that in all the gray, easier example, the Yetzer Hara is very awake and actually managing to pull us into lots of fun stuff in this world.
Do you control it?
We'll talk about it. Well, somebody's asking here, how do you control it? How do you control this Yetzer Hara? This is the work of the Tanya, but we'll talk about it a little bit today. About how to make, basically what our job is to make the Yetzer Hara asleep as much as possible. No. How do you make him asleep? If you're in the middle of praying, if you're going to be doing a mitzvah, if you're going to be busy with good stuff, in those, so you have to increase the amount of moments that your Yetzer Hara is asleep. Keep busy with holiness. That's why those people that you would call a tzaddik, they're really a Beinoni. They have a Yetzer Hara, but they manage to put them to sleep very well.
I have my small trick that I do.
Yes.
I read out loud, but not loud so everybody can hear. So I could hear and listen to the words that I'm saying.
When you pray.
Yes. So literally, you pronounce it, you read it, you say it.
But if you hear it,
If you hear it and analyze what you say, it's totally
it's another world. Somebody's saying here, when she prays, she tries to hear her words, not just say them, but also hear what she's saying and analyze what she's saying. It takes the whole prayer and the whole moment and the whole soul into another place, into a higher place. And in those moments, the Yetzer Hara is definitely sleeping. That's the idea. It's the work.
When you have the idea and you like, okay, you started thinking about something else, focus back on your voice, on the words that you say.
Yes. No, so the idea is the whole idea of the Tanya is to create this in our life, to have more inspiration to pray better and connect, because prayer is actually the moment where we're going to talk a bit more about it next week, is the moment where we're expressing our love for Hashem in such a way. Like, this is what's creating. We need to create more and more and more awareness of Hashem and more love for Hashem, and prayer is a very big one. Okay.
Had a secret.
Yeah.
Also. They say like the second your mind starts to drift, it's that exact prayer that you need help with. So like pay attention to which that prayer is.
The prayer that you drift from is the one that you have to focus on. There's a story about a student. So we say every day, actually in every prayer, I think, there's a prayer of we sinned, and we mention all the sins that we did. Ashamnu, Baganu, Gezalnu. Okay. So there was a certain student that thought that when he's reading this paragraph about all the sins that we did, it's not about him, because he's a complete person. He's perfect. And after he started learning Chassidut, he realized and he understood that it is him, but it's not going to happen very often. Like it could be that one time it happened to him, but it's not like it could happen again, but And the more he learned Hasidut, the more he understood that he failed, and not just that he did the mistake, and the same mistake might happen again, but he failed, and this mistake should never ever happen again. He shouldn't bring himself to a place where he's going to sin. He needs to work. Like when he was reading this paragraph of sinning, of all the sins that we're doing, it's like, how can we do such a sin? He basically, the more he learns, the more he realized that he needs to work on himself to not get to a place of sinning at all. Like not just I sin and I sin sometimes. No, I should not be sinning, and I should be very careful, and I should be on guard to make sure that I don't sin. It is very hard. It's a lot of self-work, but that's the more we remind ourselves every week about this self-work, the more I hope that you get awareness throughout the week about doing this, about it.
I have a friend that she told me I'm not eating in restaurants anymore, non-kosher meat or whatever. And I said, oh, something new. She says, I just feel like I stand there on Yom Kippur and I go, then I go and eat. She said, no.
No more. She realized she was fooling herself.
Yeah, so that was I said, okay.
So, yeah.
She realized by herself.
She realized that every year, I'm just saying for those, a lady was stopped going to a non-kosher restaurant and eating non-kosher meat, because she realized that every year on Yom Kippur, she's saying, Hashem Baganu, I'm sinning, and she goes back and does it again. So she realized that she's fooling herself. That was so we're going to look at the Tanya about how it says that there's a moment of spiritual elevation, like during prayer, but the bad never disappears completely. He's only becoming asleep. And the point is that the good rules over the bad, okay? Meaning the bad exists, but in that moment, the bad is on a very low fire, like it's very low. And just like in a sleeping person who is about to wake up, after prayer, the bad can wake up right away and be right there. So you're going to see how he describes it. Yeah, it's the longest part of today, so bear with me. Okay. Oh, okay. Except at those times when his love for God manifests itself in his heart. On propitious occasions, such as during prayer and the like, even then, during those times when the divine soul gains the upper hand over the animal soul, it is limited to preponderance and dominion alone. The divine soul succeeds in dominating the animal soul, not in vanquishing it, in the sense of nullifying its essence. It's only putting it, like it's only ruling over it, but it's still, the animal soul still, the Yitzhara still exists. As it is written, of the battle between Yaakov and Esav, allegorically representing the war between the good and evil in man's soul, and one nation shall prevail over the other. Jacob, exemplifying the good, merely prevails over Esav, the evil, but does not succeed in totally vanquishing him. This agrees with our sages' comments on this verse. When this one rises and prevails, that one falls. And when this one rises, this one falls. Thus, the divine soul gains strength and ascendancy over the animal soul in the source of strength, which Gevura, which is in understanding, Bina. Thus, when the divine soul gains strength over the animal soul during prayer, pondering on the greatness of God, the blessed Ein Sof, and thereby giving birth to intense and flaming love of God in the right part of his heart, and then, when divine soul dominates the animal soul with its intense and revealed love of God, the Sitra Acha, the evil of the animal soul in the left part of the heart, is subjugated. Okay, but it is not entirely abolished. In the case of the Beinoni, it is so only in a tzaddik, concerning whom it said, my heart is void within me. The abode in the heart, usually occupied by the evil inclination, is void in the heart of a tzaddik. So a tzaddik, there's a hole, there's actually no Yetzer Hara. And he, the tzaddik, despises and loathes evil with a consummate hatred. He's disgusted, that's what I mean. Because I see in Hebrew, umoes bera, he's disgusted by the bad. With a consummated hatred, if he is a complete tzaddik, or without quite such utter hatred, if he's an incomplete tzaddik, as explained above. If he's an incomplete tzaddik, there's a little bit less. We spoke about it back then, that there's less of a disgust. All of the above applies to the tzaddik, but in a Beinoni, the evil merely lies dormant, as with a sleeping man, for example, who can awaken from his sleep at any time and reactivate his faculties. So is the evil in the Beinoni dormant, as it were, in the left part of the heart, not functioning at all, not even desiring physical pleasures. During the recital of the Shema and Amidah, when his heart is aglow with the love of God, causing the evil of the animal soul to be dormant. Therefore, after prayer, it can reawaken. Okay, so he's telling us during prayer, during those moments of elevation, it can be the Yetzer Hara can be fully sleeping, but he can right away be awakened. Don't think that the Yetzer Hara is vanquished. Don't think the Yetzer Hara is gone. He's still right there. So now we're going to go into Rabbah. How come Rabbah considered himself a Beinoni? So again, I'm just reminding you, Rabbah is this man that's okay. I'll tell you in a second. So everything we just learned, okay. We're going to look now how we can judge a person. Okay, so let's check out this man, Rabbah. Okay, he was the most giant in his generation. He was a very big Rosh Yeshiva. He was a person that even the angel of death wasn't able to hurt him, because there was no moment for him that he wasn't learning Torah that he could hurt him. Okay, and they were waiting for him up there because they needed him to give an opinion on a certain judgment in Shamayim. And he also revived dead people. Okay, he never stopped learning Torah. Okay, what do you think? Is he a tzaddik? Is he a Beinoni? Or is he a Rasha? Based on everything we learned. Based on everything we learned, now you realize that he's not necessarily a tzaddik. It's very possible that he's a Beinoni. Now you understand why he's considering himself a Beinoni and not necessarily a tzaddik, even though he sounds like the most perfect person. Yeah.
Why do we need to know about?
Excellent,
another
we're getting there.
person?
Yeah, why are we talking about tzaddikim
Yeah.
today?
Like, no, but I'm saying, like, why do I need to know that this person
Is a Beinoni or a tzaddik?
Like,
Excellent question. It's exactly where we're going. It's exactly where we're going. You're asking an excellent question. Somebody's asking here, why do I care if he's a Beinoni or a tzaddik? I'm like a Rasha, so.
Just why is it important for me to know?
Okay, we're going there. This is exactly the lesson of today. Give me a second. Okay, we're definitely going there, because this is definitely, it sounds like very lofty. We're like analyzing this tzaddik and that tzaddik is a Beinoni, he's a tzaddik, like who cares? Like where am I in the picture? That's an excellent question. No, because we're so low compared to all this, but you'll see why. So Rabbah, he was this very big tzaddik, like a very big Talmid Chacham, like he was learning a lot of Torah in his generation. And based on everything that we're describing, some people would say this is a perfect tzaddik, a tzaddik gamur. But he himself said, I am not a tzaddik, I am a Beinoni. And he stood and said, they were shocked. They asked him, like, if you're a Beinoni, who are we? Like, you're not leaving us any room to be a Beinoni, like more like we're the lowest of the Rashas if you're a Beinoni. So, and even the Alter Rebbe asks this question in this first chapter. He says, this person is not stopping to learn Torah for not even 1 minute, to the point that the angel of death can't kill him. Okay, why does he consider himself a Beinoni? So what do we learn here? That it's very, very clear. A tzaddik has no Yetzer Hara. Okay, he had a Yetzer Hara and he turned it into something good. The Beinoni has a Yetzer Hara and he's managing to overcome it. We know that very clearly now, right? And Rabbah he actually didn't know whether he was a tzaddik or a Beinoni. He had no way to know. But from his behavior, on the outside, he was 100%, he was 1,000%. But he had no proof that his Yetzer Hara is gone. So he's behaving as if the Yetzer Hara is there his whole life.
Yes.
Okay? And his whole life, he's busy learning Torah, and he had no opportunity, he had no time to check if the Yetzer Hara is there and waking up. He didn't want to give the Yetzer Hara a chance to wake up. So he has no clue if he has a Yetzer Hara.
He actually followed that saying that we told us before a couple of weeks ago. that always treat yourself
As a Rasha.
Right,
Exactly. This
so
is
that
exactly our class.
If
Yeah,
he
yeah.
would have considered himself a higher level, then he would have been for
Exactly, exactly. If you
down.
consider yourself like a tzaddik, you're like, okay, I don't have to worry about anything, and then you fall very fast.
In my opinion, he was afraid to check. So he kept learning all the time.
But there's a lot of all the tzaddikim that we're talking about, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Okay, I don't know who they were. I don't know, but they were busy making sure that Yetzer Hara will never be awake. The Rebbe, like for sure, they were making sure, like they were definitely on the highest level of the Beinoni at least. Could be they were tzaddik, I don't know.
I know, but as we said, I told you before, in every generation where 30.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna double check it because that's when we
I know it since I was 6 years old.
every generation can
But
be.
then-
If there would be 10 tzaddikim, Mashiach would come. No, you need to check it again.
Okay.
If you would have 10
fine, check it.
tzaddikim, if there would be 36 in the generation of Avraham Avinu, Sodom and Gomorrah wouldn't be
No,
killed.
in every generation we have 36 because they are the pillars of the world. Without them, the
No, the pillars of the world is people that are learning Torah. You need to have at every moment,
Okay, good.
somewhere on the earth, somebody learning Torah. That's the pillar of the earth. Torah, Tefillah, Gemilut, Chasadim.
Yes.
But not tzaddikim. Okay, I'll check. Let's check. Let's go. Let's get back
Here,
to
our
it.
holy books say that every generation actually has a minimum. There may be more of 72 holy men, 36 who live in Israel and 36 who live outside of Israel. The number 36 corresponds to the 6 days. of
Okay, but it doesn't say if
creation.
it's a tzaddik gamur, 36 in every generation.
Only later.
Okay, in Rabba's generation, there was no 36 tzaddikim. He called himself a Beinoni.
Yeah,
He was the highest in his generation, and he called himself a Beinoni.
but the tzaddikim are not
I'm
always
looking for
wrong.
They don't know.
I can't read.
Yeah, but everybody has Yetzer Hara. Okay,
It's really
anyway. Here in this room, we have no tzaddikim.
Yeah. That's for sure, because they're not.
Okay, we're talking to ourselves. Okay, no, okay, but there's no tzaddikas neither here. Okay, let's get to the point here. Okay. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, even the Alter Rebbe said that he's a Beinoni for the same reason, and he says that within Beinoni you can have many levels, and it depends how much you feel Yetzer Hara. So everybody's a Beinoni. Okay. Now the question, if the question was, how is it possible that a person learns a whole day Torah and still considers himself a Beinoni and not a tzaddik? How come? So the answer is go back right to him. He says because if he learns Torah a whole day, he's not able to check if he's a tzaddik or not. So he's going to consider himself like a Beinoni. There's a story of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Yeah, same idea. Rabbi Yehuda ben Zakkai, he was a Nasi of the Sanhedrin. Okay, he was like a head of the court, and it was during the very critical moments of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, and he managed to save all a lot of stuff from a lot of richness, like a lot of possessions of the Jews. And this Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 amazing students, and he lived for 120 years like Moshe Rabbeinu, and he had thousands of people learning from him and spreading his teachings. Okay, and he was like near the Beit HaMikdash, like learning from there. And before he passed away, Rabbi Yochanan cried and he said, I don't know where I'm going, in which way they're going to take me. He wasn't sure if he's going to go to Gan Eden or to Gehinnom, to hell or to paradise, okay? And everybody's asking, how come? Such a big tzaddik, don't know, like, he doesn't know where he's going, he doesn't realize. So Chassidut explains that it's the same idea as we learned today. Rabbi Yochanan had a doubt if he managed to get rid of the bad. On the outside, of course, he looked like a tzaddik. He was 100% behaving. He was a tzaddik gamor. But this doubt that he had inside of himself was so strong inside of him, and he was scared that inside of him there's something really, really bad that was never revealed. But he felt like there might be something very bad. So he wasn't sure who he is. He wasn't sure if he's a tzaddik or not. So it's the same idea as what we're talking about over here. So let's finish off with we're going to look at whatever we just spoke about. The Alter Rebbe is going to mention Rabbah, this Rabbah that was a tzaddik that called himself a Beinoni, and then we're going to go into our lessons. How does this talk to us? Don't worry, that's the whole point. No, don't know, because of course. Let's look at the Tanya. Okay, this is it. For this reason, Rabbah considered himself a Beinoni, though his mouth never ceased from Torah study, and his desire was in studying God's Torah day and night, with a craving, desire, and longing. His soul yearning for Hashem with overwhelming love, such as that experienced during the recitation of the Shema and Amidah. It was therefore possible for him to consider himself a Beinoni, for he appeared in his own eyes as a Beinoni who prays all day, a Beinoni who throughout the day retains the level attained during prayer. As indeed our sages have said, would that a man pray the whole long day? So he's saying even Rabbah, such a person, considered himself a Beinoni, and now we completely understand why Rabbah considered himself a Beinoni. So what we learned today is that, in summary, that even if somebody is learning Torah a whole day and he's immersed in holiness a whole day, and on the outside it looks like he has no bad, we can't know for sure that that's the case, that he has no bad in him. It's very possible that the bad is asleep, right? But as soon as he lets go of a little bit of holiness, the bad can wake up and pull him downwards, okay? And that's why Rabbah considered himself a Beinoni, because he learned Torah day and night and he was constantly busy with holiness, but he felt that he had no proof for sure to know that the bad disappear. So this principle about the Beinoni, knowing that the Beinoni is different than a tzaddik, is teaching us a very, very important point of the Tanya. We have to know our weaknesses. We cannot ever think that we manage to take away the Yetzer Hara and we turn into a tzaddik. Okay, I'm not talking about completely tzaddik or completely getting the Yetzer Hara, but even in a certain item, like even in a certain something, like whether it's eating kosher or whatever mitzvah you do so well, or you never fail to pray, you never fail to give tzedakah, or whatever you never fail, don't ever think that you became in tzaddik in that area. Okay, because remember that there's always Yetzer Hara in every area of life, in every mitzvah, there's a Yetzer Hara that can wake up. For each person, for all the good things that you do, and we can never say, this is never going to happen to me. I'm never going to miss. I'm never going to, like, I'm for sure never, there's no such a thing. We always have to be aware that inside of us, there's a Yetzer Hara from when we're young, and it's there until we're 120. And it's so important to know this. And there's a few reasons that we have to know this so well. I'm going to mention to you 4 reasons why we need to know this. So number 1 is that we don't want to bring ourselves to a place of a challenge, of a test. When we know that we have a Yetzer Hara ready to attack, ready to challenge us, we're going to make sure to be on alert at every moment. That's our job. We need to be aware every moment that there's a Yetzer Hara. Whatever we do, we need to be aware that the voice might be the Yetzer Hara. Don't say, no, my Yetzer Hara is asleep. No. Your Yetzer Hara is loud. Always be aware. And that that awareness itself can avoid us from going into a place of being tested, in a place that can take us down, that can make us sin, okay? And if you ever think someone can think that he got rid of his Yetzer Hara, that's very dangerous, because he's going to think he has no Yetzer Hara, and he's for sure going to be fooled by his Yetzer Hara in 2 seconds. Yes?
I know my Yetzer Hara is just transforming. For example, I know I would never start smoking. I used to be very heavy kind of smoker. And I know no matter what, I'm never going to start smoking. And I know at this point, Yetzer Hara will not overcome me. But I know I cannot promise myself that I will not going to eat chocolate. That's my Yetzer Hara. So it's like transform.
Yeah, but never say never.
No, but
never say never. That's
what I'm saying. Like
there's certain areas that you think you mastered, and certain areas you think you didn't master. But the new thing of today is that there's no area you master. Nothing is mastered. You always have to be aware.
Of course I'm aware, but
There's a reason why it's so hard to diet. Like that's just like I'm saying, it's not nothing to do with the Yetzer Hara. This is like
Yeah, but
okay, but
knowing how bad smoking.
so I'll give you some very cool example to tell you what like how we always have a Yetzer Hara and everybody is made with a Yetzer Hara. It's a story that's brought down. It's a very funny and crazy story that's brought down in the Talmud. So there's a big mitzvah to bring joy to a Chatan Kala, to a bride and groom. We bring them, we dance with them, we dance around them, we make them dance, we make dances for them. Like there's a big idea of making them happy on the day of their wedding. And a lot of the dancing revolves around them. So there was one Rabbi Rav Aha. He had a custom. What he would do, he would take the bride and put the bride on his shoulders and dance. And he would put the bride on the shoulder and dance. And the rabbi, the sages asked him, like, what's the ruling? Can we also do that? And he told them, if the bride feels to you like a beam, like like a stone, then why not? But if if a bride doesn't feel like a stone to you, then like a beam, then definitely you can't. So this person actually was he didn't feel it. He didn't feel anything about a woman. But any human being touches a woman, a bride, a gorgeous bride, we all have a Yetzer Hara. Okay, so it's very clear. Another example is when you have a war and you make peace, you still have to be on alert. Like you still do you have a guarantee that it's peace and the enemy is gone? No, the enemy still exists and you never know what he's going to do the next day. Look at the Arabs in Israel. Like I'm saying, there's no such a thing as full peace. Like you have to always, even if you make peace with your Yetzer Hara, you think you made peace with him, you have to be on alert that he's going to show up and be aware and be ready, always, okay? So that's the first reason why it's important to know that we have the Yetzer Hara that wakes up, etc. Now, another thing is that we have to create, there's one of the things, it's in the Mishnah, it says that we need to create, there's a question? Somebody said bye. Okay, bye Vada, thanks for coming. The second idea is that we need to make a barrier for the Torah. What does that mean? That means that the sages knew what our Yetzer Hara looks like, and they knew how hard it is to overcome this Yetzer Hara, and they created a lot of extra parts to every mitzvah or every avera. Everything that we're not allowed to do, they added more fences around them.
Yeah.
They added more details so that we shouldn't get to do this avera. Okay. For example, I don't know, the first example that comes to me is Tarat HaMishpacha. Tarat HaMishpacha, a man and woman, if the woman is during her period or she's nida, she cannot have intercourse with her husband. Okay, they can't be physically together. But what did the rabbis add? Lots of stuff on top of it. Okay, there's also from the Torah that they're not allowed to touch during those days, but they added they shouldn't pass anything from hand to hand during those days. They shouldn't eat from the same plate. All these things are barriers to make sure that they don't get there. The avera is only to not have intercourse, but to not get there, they also added a lot of barriers. But there's like that also with everything on Shabbat. Another example, Shabbat. One of the barriers that the sages added is something called muktzah. If you're not allowed to write, we're not allowed to write. That's one of the 39 melachos. But we're not allowed to touch a pen. Even touching a pen, moving a pen from here to here, even if I'm not writing with it, I'm not allowed to touch a pen. All the things that we're not allowed to use on Shabbat are muktzah. We don't touch them. So we don't touch tape, we don't touch a pen, we don't touch a stapler, like we don't touch things that we can't, that we're not allowed to use. So those are barriers that are added on top of the averot in order to help us not get there, because we're aware that we have a Yetzer Hara and we are aware of the difference between, like we don't want to get there. Okay, there's a story also about Rabbi Tzaddik Rab Moshe Leib of Sasov. He would go to gambling places and he would find Jews over there and bring them to Torah. and he would bring them to do tshuva, etc. But he was able to do it because this person had a proof that he was at a level of a tzaddik. He knew he had no Yetzer Hara. He had no doubt that he's going to have a Yetzer Hara pulling him down when he goes to the gambling, that he's going to be pulled, that he's going to want to do it. But we have to be very careful from such things. All of us have a Yetzer Hara. If I'm going to think I'm going to go bring candles to all the women gambling, I might be pulled there because I have a Yetzer Hara. So we have to be 10 times, like we have to be 100 times careful if we ever go there, or we should not go there, but we have to be extremely, extremely careful because we know we have a Yetzer Hara and we might be pulled to those things. But this person knew that he's not going to be pulled. It's just another example. Another reason we need to know, we're learning all this, is that we should never get to a place of disappointment. We have expectations. Sometimes we're trying so hard to do all the mitzvot. We're working so much on ourselves. And we want to get to a level of a tzaddik shekulo tov. We want to become a tzaddik. And then we're always going to realize that we have always attractions to bad. Somehow it never leaves us. So yeah, be realistic. Have realistic expectations. You have a Yetzer Hara, it's not going away anywhere. and then you'll never get disappointed as you work so hard. Like a person can be learning a whole day and stay in yeshiva a whole day on a Beit Midrash, like people on a higher level, not us, and they think that they're going to become a tzaddik. No, they're always going to have a Yetzer Hara. As soon as they leave the Beit Midrash, there's a Yetzer Hara. And even us, as much as we're trying to stop smoking or whatever avera that we're stopping to do, we have to be aware that we're never going to be a tzaddik in that area. We have realistic expectation, we're constant work, and the Alter Rebbe tells us, I know you're a Beinoni, I know you have a Yetzer Hara, and you're always going to be pulled to do the wrong things. Just have realistic expectation and work on it, and make sure that on the outside, the purpose of the Beinoni is not that he has no temptations, it's just on the outside we control our behavior. So that's another thing. And the last thing is that we need to diagnose situations properly. When a person is convinced that he's a tzaddik, he's going to think that all my desires are holy. I can go anywhere I want because, like, as long as, like, I have holiness that's like on fire. I love Hashem. I love the Torah. There's no way nothing's going to happen to me. But then the example that I have here is that somebody that follows the Torah so perfectly, he's going to come and scream at his wife and say, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? Screaming at his wife is never okay. And what happens is the Yetzer Hara, in the name of Torah, in the name of he's going to say, look, your wife is doing something terrible. You have to tell her. Like, so you think that you're following Torah, but you're listening to your Yetzer Hara. So that happens to all the regular people, that we think, like, within Torah, we're full and we look and we judge our friends, we judge our neighbors, and we're the way we're talking to others is all coming from such a place of, with, like, as if we're the tzaddik. But no, just like, it's important to judge around people around us properly, and also be aware that a lot of times the voice can be coming right from the Yetzer Hara. And when we know the truth, we're going to understand that there's the animal soul. We're going to realize which is the voice talking, that it's an animal soul voice talking, and we're going to realize that the animal soul is sometimes hiding himself behind a very beautiful costume of holiness. Like, you have to realize that the Yetzer Hara, like, disguises himself, like he's putting on a costume and coming in a place as if he's holy and as if you're doing something holy, but it's the Yetzer Hara talking. And the more we're aware of it, the more we're going to avoid it. The more we're going to avoid listening to Yetzer Hara. So whatever, in conclusion, the more we're aware that we're not a tzaddik, the more we're aware that there's always Yetzer Hara fighting, the more we're able to fight it and be the best we can. But we have to be aware. The idea is that there's no such a thing as perfection. There's no such a thing as I got rid of my Yetzer Hara, or I reached a certain level. Yes.
If we have high expectations of ourselves, and then we say, okay, we're never going to be, and it's kind of,
it's discouraging.
yeah.
But but the idea is that it's necessary in order to be on guard of the Yetzer Hara. We spoke about it last week. We said, if we're telling us, don't consider yourself like a Rasha, it sounds very discouraging, right? It sounds like you're never going to manage, like you're forever going to be a Rasha. The purpose of this is to tell us, always be on guard. You're going to be successful if you are aware that you have a Yetzer Hara. You must be aware of your weaknesses. That's the lesson of today. You have to know your weaknesses. You have to know your downsides, so that you should be able to overcome them. If you don't know your weaknesses, you think you're perfect, it's going to be impossible. You have to know that you have a Yetzer Hara, you have to know your weaknesses, and then the whole Tanya is going to teach us how to overcome it. But it's very important to work as a base of considering ourselves like a Rasha, knowing the massive difference between a Beinani and a Rasha. Even if you're the highest Beinani, you're not, between a Beinani and a Tzaddik. Even if you're the highest Beinani, you're not necessarily a Tzaddik. You have no proof that your Yetzer Hara is gone. Your Yetzer Hara is always there. And sometimes you feel in a moment of elevation, but your Yetzer Hara is always, he can be sleeping, but he's going to wake up at some point, later or earlier. Be aware that he's going to wake up, even if you're in such a moment of elevation. It happens to us, like we're very often in a moment of elevation, sometimes for a very long period of time, like it can be sometimes weeks and months, that we can be in such a good place that we're like so good about it, about learning and praying, like we can be so good about it for a very long time, and we can be like, okay, I'm good. Exactly, the Yetzer Hara is awake. He wakes up. The Yetzer Hara is not going to let you enjoy it so much. So with that, we're done. And next class is going to be talking about, we're going to continue talking about this Beinani and learning the meaning of the Beinani and see if the Beinani, is it something that's a compromise or is that the actual truth? Like how much truth is the Beinani, or how much is it like he's like not fully there and he's halfway? And so there's different types of truth we're going to talk about next week. Okay, I'm ending the recording, not the